So, okay, we are 5 minutes after 7, so we can maybe start our AMA. So, at the beginning, maybe you can introduce yourself and talk about your experience in working in Web3 projects.
Definitely, yeah. So, well, I'm Lunaman, as you can see on my name. I'm part of the Gains Network team. I joined Gains Network because I was one of the first investors when the project launched in January of 2021. It initially launched on Ethereum mainnet before the gas fees went crazy and it was impossible to use it. Then we decided to migrate to Polygon, and I was a pretty big whale, let's say, of the project. So it was in my benefit to help the project as much as possible. And at some point, I just officially joined the team to also help because Seb, probably many of you don't know him. He's the founder and the main dev. He's a machine. The guy has been working for almost 2 years non-stop. He works on Sundays, he works on Saturdays, he works on holidays, he works all the time, and he needed some help to start scaling, especially for this biz dev and talking with new projects to collaborate or with influencers or all kinds of partnerships. And that's my role at Gains. I've been in the crypto market since I came with a big bubble in 2017. I was very naive at the beginning, and then I lost a lot of money in 2018. But I decided to stick around. I found the whole technology and the whole ethos and motivations behind cryptocurrency super interesting. And yeah, and I've just gotten deeper and deeper in DeFi since then. Thanks to my work at Gains, I've also collaborated with MakerDAO. I met the people from MakerDAO in person in one of the conferences. Really, really nice people. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good introduction.
Yeah, that's great. So your start was like almost everyone. So join a market on the bubble in 2017 and then just got wrecked and learn the rest lesson and just get out stronger. So
You see number go up, and you think you can just put some bucks and be a millionaire, but it's never like that.
yeah, you think you are a god in a few months when
Exactly.
everything
Everyone
is
is a genius in a bull market.
yeah. I've been there, done that. So so we got the same experience, I think. All right. So that was good introduction, and now we will go to the YouTube with this video. So maybe you can tell us just basic stuff about gTrade, Gains Network. What is this project and what is this platform?
Sure. So gTrade is the first product of Gains Network. Gains Network is a suite of projects of different DeFi projects. The first of which is gTrade, which is a decentralized and on-chain leverage trading platform. It's really cool because it uses synthetics. So when you trade on gTrade, you don't actually no one gives you Bitcoin or Ethereum. Same as I bet most of you are familiar with GMX. You have this GLP pool, and when you trade, you're using the actual collateral behind the GLP token to trade. With gTrade, it doesn't work like this. With gTrade, we have a DAI vault, which is the counterparty, let's say, and when you trade, you bet on the price of cryptos. We also offer stocks. We offer forex. We're gonna be launching indices, commodities. We can launch pretty much anything that has a price feed. We can launch it, and I think that's something very unique about us. We offer up to 150x leverage on crypto, so it's a bit degen in that sense.
Yeah, for true degens.
No one is forced to use 150x. It's really useful if you have a bot and you do scalping. So you are on the 1 minute or 1 second candles. using that type of leverage is appropriate. We also offer up to 1000x on Forex, because Forex usually doesn't move much. It moves 1 bip or 5 bips per day. Maybe not now, because now the whole world is in chaos and everything is moving 20% from day to day. And then we offer up to 100x leverage on different stocks.
Oh, that seems good. But I will ask you the different question, and the first question is going to be about what you said earlier, that Seb is your main dev, and he's working his ass off to deliver. But is there any like his right hand dev that he's doing also a lot of job and knows the stuff? Because I wish him the best, but you know how it happens in life, when in health and everything. And is there gonna be a really big problem for protocol if something happened, and for example Seb won't be able to work for some months, or I don't know, weeks, something like that?
I mean, you're totally right, and it's not only about his health or if something happens, but at some point you have to fix current stuff and then develop new stuff that a single person cannot do it. It will take too long. The team has been scaling a lot in this past month. Currently, I think we have as full stack devs, and we have another 2 guys, Nathan and Yuri. They do front end and back end with Seb. Then we have Drew, which also does backend, and he does smart contracts to help Seb. And we have a few other front-end devs. I don't really remember their names because I'm not too much in contact with them. I myself have how would I say it? Very little knowledge about design. So my artistic kind of side of me, it's minimal, so I don't do much with the front end. But we have like 2 front end guys dedicated to front end, and 3 full stack smart contract guys apart from Seb.
Okay, so you get some backup there. But how many people is overall in the team? All of you guys?
We are 10 people.
Okay.
Yeah. We're 10 people.
Okay, so it's not that much. It's not that many.
Well, I mean, we try to keep the costs at a minimum, especially because it's something special about how the project started. So there was no public sale or ICO round or seed round, anything like that, and no percentage of the token was reserved for the team. So all the tokens were given to the community through farming incentives for the first 2 or 3 months since at the beginning of January of 2021 until April or May of 2021. And the project gets funding from the fees. So when people use the platform, there are some fees that are charged for opening and closing trades. And part of those fees go to the protocol wallet, which is what funds all the salaries for the devs. It funds the audits. It funds marketing campaigns that we might do. So we try to be cost efficient with our funds. We don't have unlimited funds.
Yeah. Okay. So this is this dev and Go fund, yeah, that you are sending them the money there. Yeah, this is very interesting because many projects, they got totally different business model, and most of them, like for example GMX, like this is your like competitor, let's say that, and so they've got token allocation, and they live from this token. But you went different route. You need to make good product. You need to bring some new traders, and then you can have just good salary because of that.
Exactly.
And so this is I think this is good way, because this is like a little more like traditional model of business, not this crypto, print some tokens, give us money, and and we do whatever we want because we got tokens, and then we just need to play it good to keep the price of the token right. So yeah, I like it. I like it very much.
Yeah, you're right. The idea is to have our incentives align with the community and the growth of the token overall. So if the project is doing good, the token will be doing good. People will actually use the platform. Fees will come in. It benefits the stakers and it benefits the team. It benefits everyone.
Yes, exactly. That's correct. So the heart of your project is, I think, is the vault that is in DAI. So I've got a question about that. Why you chose DAI instead of, for example, USDC? And why I'm asking about that, because when USDC will go wrecked, so DAI will wrecked too. But could you just avoid some of the risk to have problems with DAI and just go for the USDC instead?
So, I mean, that's a really good question. When we started, we had to choose some stablecoin. And it is true that if USDC gets wrecked, DAI will be partially wrecked. I say partially because DAI is an over collateralized stablecoin, so not all the collateral that backs DAI will be frozen, but certainly a big part of it, a big enough part that it would affect its peg would probably suffer. But in that sense, DAI itself, the token, it's not centralized, so it cannot be frozen. While we're talking here that we are developing an on-chain decentralized leverage platform where you can trade stocks. Well, you don't really trade stocks; you trade on the price of stocks. So we would be more at risk of, let's say, the U.S. government telling Circle to freeze USDC in the vault. So that's why we decided to go with DAI. With our new vault upgrade, which will be coming with our Arbitrum launch, we add the capacity of having multiple vaults. So now we're going to have the DAI vault, but we can open Bitcoin vaults, Ethereum vaults, so people can trade with those. We could open MAI, this stablecoin from the QDAO protocol. We can open a USDC vault. We can open a Frax vault. It will be up to the community and the traders themselves what tokens they would be interested in trading with.
Oh, that's very interesting. I wanted to ask about that. So you're gonna have a few vaults, and are those vaults gonna be isolated?
Yeah, they're gonna be isolated. So you can choose to stake only on the DAI vault, only on the stablecoin vaults, or only on the ETH and Bitcoin vaults, whatever you prefer.
So which vault are you gonna use for the trades? So for example, there's gonna be like Bitcoin vaults, Ether vaults. So are you gonna use just this Bitcoin vaults for the Bitcoin trades, or is gonna go for the forex and everything? How it's gonna work?
The vaults are there for the traders. So if let's say we want to habilitate people trading with Frax, well, before anyone can start trading with Frax, there needs to be a vault of Frax that acts as the counterparty of whoever is trading. Same as GMX, you have GLP, which is the counterparty of the traders. You will need a vault that's the counterparty of whoever is trading. First, we will need a vault of Frax with some decent liquidity, and then people can start using Frax to trade on gTrade. So at the end of the day, it depends on what asset the trader wants to trade with. The Bitcoin and ETH vaults, they will be added because we're going to be adding Bitcoin and ETH pairs. So let's say ETH BTC, Matic BTC, or Sol ETH, all of these pairs. So you can trade with the actual base pair instead of the dollar. But you could also trade USDC Euro with Bitcoin. But it's going to be a bit messy for you as a trader try and see what the profit is for you.
Okay. So, but the main vault is gonna be DAI vault that you will use for most of the trades there. Yeah.
Again, it depends on what traders want. So, we're gonna start with the DAI vault. So most of all of the liquidity is gonna be in the DAI vault. But then let's say the next vault we open it's a Frax vault, and then we see that people start staking, and we see a lot of traders prefer to use Frax. Then that Frax vault is gonna get most of the fees from trading, because the fees are collected in Frax and paid to the Frax stakers, which raises APR, which would incentivize more people to stake Frax, which would raise the limits, the security limits, and allow for more trading, which raises fees more. So at the end of the day, it depends on what traders prefer to use as collateral. That's what's gonna determine what the biggest vault is.
Okay, I get it. It's quite interesting, and I heard in Sep Ama with Arbitrum that there's gonna be also GDAI, like synth of your vault. That when I put the money there, I will get GDAI that I can use somewhere else. So is that coming too?
Yeah, of course, that's gonna be coming with the vault. And if we have a Frax vault, it's gonna be gFrax. If we have a ETH vault, it's gonna be gETH, and whatever asset it is, it's gonna have this yield-bearing token as well.
Okay, so for sure that's gonna improve your composability, and I know that then you can use those tokens to other platforms. So the question is, are you cooperate and talk with some projects now to have this connection with them? To maybe someone wants to build on the top of you, or the.
Well, that's again a really good question. I cannot reveal too much, but we are talking with projects that issue stablecoins that can use it as collateral, and also people that want to build vaults on top of it. Kind of, you have all of these people building GLP vaults. It will be the same. Or similar with us. So we're working with both projects that would take it as collateral to mint stablecoins and lending platforms, and projects that want to build these yield vaults on top of us.
Oh, that's great. So,
but I cannot be too specific.
Yeah. I know. I understand.
It will kill me if I say it.
I understand. We're just guy from Poland. No one will listen. That you can send us some alpha. No worries. Yeah, but
there's some alpha already.
Yeah, but your answer was that you are talking with someone, so that's good to hear, because more cooperation, then you will spread the words about project, and it's gonna be better for us holders and everyone. So definitely, that's really great. And about Vault still. For now, there is this mechanism. There was a mechanism like when there was this collapse of the Luna, that you need to print more GNS to send some more DAI in the vault. And in the article, in one of the articles about GNS single-sided staking, real yield and decentralizations, you said that you stopped that, and for now you won't do it. And what's the other way to put more money in the vault when there is like big crisis?
Well, this is actually coming back with the new vault design. It was a problem with the previous one, because if the vault were to be under collateralized, then people would they know that the vault is going to sell GNS, like mint GNS and sell it to refill the vault. So people could dump their GNS and try to arbitrage it. But this dumping would just make the vault mint more GNS. because it's at a lower price, mint more GNS for the same amount of DAI, and it will create this bad, like self-fulfilling loop that would be really bad for the platform because it would have some bad debt. But this is fixed with the new Vault implementation. I cannot say too much about it. It has to do with the gDAI and the value of gDAI with respect to the collateral. So it will be the same if the vault is over collateralized, over 130%. Then the vault will periodically market buy GNS with the extra DAI and burn it. This is how, for example, the initial supply of the token was 38 million, 38.5 million. And now we have 30 million because the vault for the most part of 2021 was market buying the GNS token and burning it from trader losses. But gDAI, the price of gDAI will fluctuate with the over collateralization or under collateralization of the token. So this negative feedback loop will not exist anymore. It will be so if the vault is under collateralized, all the gDAI holders already are assuming this under collateralization in that they can redeem their gDAI for less DAI.
Okay.
So it's built in, so no one benefits from trying to front run and exit quickly. It wouldn't work. It's kind of like when you deposit, I don't know if you're familiar with Dopex, and you're providing liquidity for the options. But if the option expires in the money, then you're gonna lose part of the deposit you put in. So it's the same. Well, it's not the same, but it's a similar concept.
What do you think is the biggest like threat to the vault? What can go wrong? What is like the worst scenario that can like put you in big danger?
I mean, the biggest danger we had was this negative feedback loop. This doesn't exist anymore. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, if I, the thing is, we have gone over the design many times, and it also got audited. So we think we've found most of the big issues, and we've corrected them. So right now, I cannot think of something that would immediately endanger the platform. But afterwards, when people ask questions, if they have any interesting proposition, then I would be delighted to give it a thought.
Sure.
And try to discuss it.
So I think the biggest threat is that everyone is right, all the traders, but that won't
of
happen.
course.
That won't happen.
But that's a threat for any trading platform. It's the same for GMX or DYDX or Binance.
Yeah, to every exchange, every DEX.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure. So when are you planning to launch this new vault? Is it gonna be like in this year or just next?
No, it's this year. We're actually a bit delayed because the audit took a bit longer than expected. But we have the audit back, and we're just making sure the front end is ready. And I think I don't want to promise anything because I always say, yeah, this date, and then we're delayed. But maybe next week we should launch.
Oh, so that's really great.
It was planned for this past week, like I mean this week that we're in already, to already be online on Arbitrum, but yeah, it got a bit delayed. So
This new vault will come with the launch on Arbitrum, yeah?
Yeah, and the Polygon vault will stay as it currently is, and it will be upgraded later on.
All right. So So everything new will be on the Arbitrum for now.
Correct. Yeah.
We can say that. So when you gonna launch on Arbitrum, so maybe this is time to go and list token on CEX. Are you planning to do it? Because we've got some rumors that CEX is coming.
Okay, so here's the thing. We are not gonna be paying for any listing because we don't really see the value in that apart from like some initial hype. We are long-term builders. I think we've shown this for the past 2 years. And we're always looking to maximize our funds and the money we're making and put it to good use. So paying for sex listings will not happen. The thing is, we are drawing quite some attention, and we are like the biggest token on Polygon, for example. If you go on QuickSwap, we have the top three. Our pair is the top three with the most volume. We have more volume than Matic on QuickSwap. It's insane. Our DAI Vault is also the biggest DAI wallet in all of Polygon. So we are making a lot of sound, and sexes always want to list tokens that have a lot of volume because that means more fees for them. But we're talking with some sexes. Unfortunately, I cannot say which, but yeah, just don't expect too much because we're not willing to pay listing fees and all of this crap to get on a sex.
Okay, I understand. I saw that you're like GNS holders are growing. Now it's almost 10,000. I remember that like 1 month ago it was, or 2 months ago it was like 3,000. So yeah, you got some attention on the market now.
Indeed, yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. So that's really good. Can you tell a few things about your NFTs? Because you've got NFT that can give traders a little bit better fees and also for the stakers better yield, I think. So how does it work?
Could you repeat the question?
I wanted to ask about your NFTs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the advantage to hold it for the users, for the stakers?
Sure, yeah. So our NFTs have three main utilities. There are more that will be coming in the future, as well as related to governance. But for now, what they do is they reduce the spread. So when you trade, there is always a difference between the bid and the ask. So if the current price of Bitcoin is whatever it is now, 17K, then if you long, the price is going to be a bit above 17K. And if you short, the price is going to be a bit below. This is to prevent, if spread was zero and you can long and short at the same price as the current price, bots could exploit micro movements in price. So that's why a spread exists. With this, we have 5 different types of NFTs. We say there are 5 tiers, so bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and diamond. So the first utility is they reduce your spread. Bronze reduces it by 15%, and diamond reduces it by 35%. You don't need to stake it, you need to hold it in the wallet you're using to trade, and the spread will be reduced automatically. The second utility, which is what most people like it for, is that they boost your rewards. So if you work, because we have a GNS staking pool, you can stake your GNS and you're earning part of the fees that the platform generates. But you can stake up to 3 NFTs, and they will give you a boost. So they will, if let's say the APR is 10%, then a bronze NFT will boost it by 2%, silver by 3%, and the exact numbers are in our docs, so I would recommend anyone to check the docs. And the diamond boosts your rewards by 13%. And you stake the NFT with the GNS tokens you're staking, and you automatically get this boost. And the final one, which is for the most tech savvy people, is you with our NFT you can run bots. So the bots we have are how to explain this? Okay, so the platform has limit orders, so you can place limit orders to enter, you can place stop losses and take profits. The way to do this decentralized, in a decentralized way, we've designed this system of bots, so anyone can run a bot. We have the code is free on GitHub, and also you're free to create your own code if you want to be faster than anyone else and get those liquidations. So you need to run the bot, and for the bot to be active, you need an NFT. And these bots trigger limit orders, they trigger stop losses, take profits, and liquidations. And the bot runner gets fees from doing all of these actions. And you can only run a bot if you have an NFT. It doesn't matter what type of NFT, they all offer this ability. And there are in total 1,500 NFTs. So it's pretty scarce. There are 500 bronze, 400 silver, 300 gold, 200 platinum, and only 100 diamond. The diamond ones, it's a bit insane. They're selling for like 15 ETH or 20 ETH.
Oh, geez.
And at the peak, I saw some NFTs selling for up to $60K dollars on OpenSea.
Oh, that's nice. That's interesting. Yeah. Really. So now we've got like this crazy situation in the traditional market and also crypto, and we saw some days that the main like assets on your platform that gave you volume was some forex and also stocks. So the question is, in the future, when you're gonna list new assets, what is gonna be main focus? Is it gonna be crypto or maybe some traditional assets?
Well, we don't have some category of asset that we prefer over others. The goal is to have the most important assets. The most important assets per asset category. So we want to list the major stocks. We want to list all the major forex pairs, all the major commodities. Once we launch commodities, the major indices, and then the biggest crypto. I think we have more or less the biggest cryptos. We had to delist some of the ones we were offering because their liquidity was super low. So we could only allow people to trade 1K or 2K. So it wasn't really worth it it caused more problems, but people will be like, I cannot trade this asset. Why I cannot trade it? Because the open interest was maxed out because it was very small. So we just delisted it. Maybe once the liquidity comes back to the market, we'll list most of the cryptos back on. But we just want to list the major ones, and then we will leave it up to governance once we implement governance to decide what new assets to list. But we don't really have a preference.
All right. But are there gonna be new assets during this Arbitrum launch, or this is gonna stay the same as it is?
Shortly after Arbitrum, we're gonna have indices will be coming next. So SPY, the Dow Jones,
great choice.
DXY, all of this. Then commodities will be afterwards. And then we can start having the Bitcoin pairs, ETH pairs. And then something really cool that we can do with our design is we can have custom pairs. So we can have stuff like Tesla Doge. or
Oh Jesus, that's
gold
crazy.
BTC. It's really, I mean, it's fairly easy. You stake,
Yeah.
for example, Tesla USD, and then the inverse of Doge USD, which is USD Doge, and it's kind of like when you multiply derivatives with the same numerator and denominator, so they cancel out, and then you have Tesla Doge because the USD part cancels out. And with that kind of strategy, we can list anything. We can list oil BTC, or I don't know, Shiba Japanese yen, anything. We can list anything.
So now I know why Seb is working so hard.
Yeah, I mean, Seb is a fucking mastermind.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
be honest, it's such a pleasure to be working with him and with everyone else in the team. Of course, I think we have a lot of quality people in the team. We maximize the money for the quality. So instead of having a lot of people, we have a few people, but they're all tens out of 10.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to see commodities on your platform, because I think this is really scarce on blockchain to trade commodities, and also on a leverage. So it's gonna be interesting. I think like oil, silver, gold. That's gonna be really desirable assets to trade.
Definitely, yeah. We're they're gonna be coming right after indices, or maybe before indices. We might do a poll and see what the community wants. Maybe community, the traders really prefer commodities before indices. So we will do a check with the community and decide what to list next.
Yeah, sure. Just put everything at once, mate. Just
Yeah,
let
but
the
then
degen
we
be the
cannot.
degens.
But then people won't appreciate it. We list everything. They will
Okay.
not be wowed by the new assets.
Or they will get wrecked too early.
And
It's
then
not
no more
gonna-
traders. They all lose their money.
yeah, those degens just gonna go wild, and the 100x, and that's
Yes,
it.
definitely.
What other things are you gonna implement also during this Arbitrum launch? So there's gonna be new vault, there's gonna be new assets. I heard something about some new limit order resistance, because for now on the Polygon is quite slow sometimes, and I think that you've got some problems to execute all the transactions. And
Yeah.
Arbitrum is a little bit more expensive, but a little bit faster. So there's
Yeah.
gonna be some improvement.
Well, to be honest, I'm not a tech guy, so I'm
Okay.
not 100% sure on the technical improvements. But it is true that Arbitrum is way faster than Polygon. Like I've been trying on some test nets for gTrade, and it's insane. I've also tried GMX, and I've tried using Dopex and just swapping on Uniswap, and it's instant compared to Polygon, but it is more expensive. So on Polygon, the minimum collateral position you can open it's 10 DAI. On Arbitrum, it cannot be 10 DAI because it wouldn't be profitable for our Chainlink nodes to run such small positions. I think the minimum position needs to be 100 DAI or 120 DAI. So it's a bit of a barrier, but the thing is we will not stop, like the platform will not stop running on Polygon. So if you don't have that much money and you have $200 and you want to be trading in 20s or 30s, then you can always use Polygon. And if you can afford to trade with 2K, 5K, or 100K collateral, then I would assume you would go to Arbitrum because it's way more reliable and faster.
Should traders use different RPC to overcome this shitty performance on Polygon sometimes? Do you recommend it?
I mean, Polygon has this aggregated RPC, which is the one we recommend. I think it's called Polygon Dash RPC, and it has like 5 or 6 RPCs in one. and it will always choose the one that's less congested. But I mean, it solves some of the problems, but then Polygon had this big problem with chain reorgs, especially at the beginning of the year. We got a lot of complaints. So for those that are not familiar, it's pretty much the chain starts approving transactions, approving blocks, and then after 30 blocks, the chain says, "Oh, this whole past 30 blocks, it's invalid." So they all get erased, and the chain restarts again. So imagine you have a trade open, and you're in profit, and you're enjoying it. You close the trade, and then after 30 blocks, your trade is back open again, and you are now at a loss. So it was a big problem. We got a lot of understandable complaints, and we asked people to send us the Polygon scan links, and we would refund the money, the initial money, in case they lost it. But luckily that got solved. But it does happen from time to time, way less than at the beginning of the year. But yeah, it's something the RPCs can't really fix. It's a bit more complicated.
Okay. This
But
is
overall,
really
Polygon is not a bad chain. It's just, I think Arbitrum is going to be a bit better.
yeah. But this is really shitty when you got like this good trade. You you can earn a lot of money. You already call the hookers and for your dealer, you know, and then oh crap, Polygon, fuck you.
Oh man, it was awful. Like, and I totally understood. People were like, traders were pissed, and it makes total sense. It wasn't our fault because the platform was working at it as intended. It's not like gTrade fucked up. It was the underlying blockchain. So it sucks because we couldn't do anything about it apart from we would text the Polygon team. We have a chat with them. We would text them every day. It's like, when are you gonna get this fixed? Come on! Like, we're one of your biggest apps, and we get like all these people pissed because they can't use the platform on Polygon. But yeah, luckily we've transcended beyond that, and everything's going much better.
You said that team is making money on the fees, but
Yeah.
are those fees big enough to cover all the expenses for now?
Yeah, definitely. We have actually even been building the what's it called, the project reserves.
Okay.
So we spend less than we're making.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's as I say, we're pretty efficient with how we work, and we're long-term oriented, so we don't spend all the money on crypto hookers and yachts and partying.
And Lambos.
We spend and Lambos, yeah. We spend it wisely, so we haven't had any problems. We've, as we discussed at the beginning, we've been expanding the team in the past months. I think 5 months ago we were 4 people. Now we're 10.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah,
It's going pretty great.
Hire some more guys because you're gonna be so exhausted, and that's not gonna be good for the project. Yeah, when someone just burned all the motivation to do it. You know how it is.
Oh, the motivation is still there. I mean, every time we see all-time highs in volume or in
Price.
fees or in number of users, it's just a great boost to us.
Exactly. People appreciate it, so that's the best reward you can have from the community.
Yeah, and I think that apart from the platform itself, we've improved a lot in the UX experience. I forgot. We're gonna have a huge, and I can hype this app properly. We're gonna have a huge UX upgrade when we launch on Arbitrum.
All right.
Huge. It's gonna be something groundbreaking.
Okay.
I can't say what it is, but
We'll see.
just keep an eye when we launch on Arbitrum and use the platform. 'Cause it's something that I think is going to be groundbreaking, and we are very aware that apart from just having solid tokenomics great smart contracts and all of this, the UX needs to be good. If the UX is shit, people will not trade on the platform. So one of our main focus is making the UX smooth and fast, and then integrating some widgets so people can swap tokens for DAI, so they can trade and do everything on the same page, and also bridge from different blockchains into Polygon or Arbitrum directly from our page. So all of these small UX improvements will be coming, but there is something even bigger than that will be coming with Arbitrum.
Okay, that's really exciting, and you're 100% right that you can have like everything the best, but if user experience is gonna be shit, no one is gonna trade there. And
exactly.
If no one is gonna trade there, we won't make life-changing money on the GNS token.
Exactly, and because we don't have inflationary rewards, if no one trades in the platform, then there are no fees that will keep the team afloat, and that will reward people for staking the DAI in the vault. So everything will crumble if traders are not satisfied. So this is truly trader-centric platform.
Do you have some kind of marketing strategy about this RB launch, or maybe after it? Like, are you gonna just put some money to be like on some, I don't know, YouTube channels, on I don't know, some website like CoinMarketCap, some ads, something like that?
I mean, based on our experience, all of these paid promotions are not that good.
Okay.
Maybe they create hype, especially for the token price, but that's not really what we want. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love if GNS goes to $50. I'll be,
Yeah.
It would be insane. But that's not our goal. Our goal is to bring traders. We are gonna be launching a campaign for Arbitrum. Apart from trading contests that we're gonna be doing, we're gonna be launching a campaign to promote people into using the platform, both trading and using all the tools, all the limit orders and the stop losses, and to stake money in the DAI vault and explore how the platform works. So we're preparing a campaign for that. And apart from that, trading contests, so people come and trade on the platform. Those I think are the best ways to market the platform. I'm not really a believer of just paying a couple of guys and they make videos. We got a lot of great videos and a lot of great threads on Twitter that we didn't pay for. It's just people that they like the platform, they buy their own bag, because again, we don't have VCs or pre-sales or whatever. So they like the platform, they buy their own bag, and then they make videos and make threads. And we've got huge influencers that have been doing this, and we didn't pay any of them.
Yeah, sure. Like, I totally agree with you that those paid shares are not the best. It's just mainly projects are using it to pump the token. But you are platforms that need to bring some traders, and traders need to find some information about you, that you exist. So anyway, need to put some money in the marketing.
And then the best way that people can make sure that we don't really care about pumping the GNS token is that we get fees in DAI. So we don't need to pump the token to sell it and fund the team. The team gets fees from the platform in DAI already. So obviously the platform does good, the GNS token will do great, and we want it to do great and for the price to go up, but people can be sure that our intention is not to pump the token price to sell it, because we get the fees in DAI or in whatever stablecoin the traders will use.
Yeah, that's really great. So, what do you think? Who is your bigger competitor there? Everyone knows that there is GMX, and they are gonna launch synthetics assets and some new upgrades. But is there any player that you compete with, maybe?
I mean, it's true that GMX is the other great trading project out there. I think DYDX has their days counted for. They've played their cards really badly, in my opinion. Not only with their tokenomics, but with this like biometric KYC bullshit. And then the other ones are just not serious. Like I don't know, per protocol, and I'm sorry if I offend other people. It's my opinion, and also based on my ignorance, because I'm not an expert in these projects. I know a bit about them, but I don't really think GMX is a competitor because the space is so small. So our competitors are sexes, and at the end of the day, I think GMX is better suited for low leverage and no leverage trades because they have huge liquidity and they have this swap function inbuilt as well, where they get a lot of fees from. I think they make more fees from the swapping than from the actual leverage trading. And we are built for medium to high leverage because we offer these insane leverages. So we do meet in let's say compete in some areas, but I don't think we need to take food out of each other's mouth. We need to build the pie bigger and take mouth from the centralized exchanges. Because if you compare the volume on GMX and GNS and all of us together compared to Binance and OKX, Huobi and all of these players, we're nothing. We're a speck of dust. So those are the players. That's where the money will come from the people that are using sexes. And this goes back to the point of we need to improve the UX for people to actually use the platform, because you bring a sex trader to, they have to use MetaMask and keep their 12 words somewhere, and then they need to connect to Uniswap and swap some shit, and they need to connect their wallet and make sure that they're not getting rocked by connecting to some exploiter contract, and it's a hassle, you know. So this needs to be improved for sex traders to migrate to us.
Yeah, that's 100% true. You don't have to like compete and eat each other throat. You can just do your job, and the best will win. The best will bring many traders. But I think that there is like really possibility to be the leader in your area that you work. So you've got a really good chance to be the main per platform in a crypto. So I think
Yeah, definitely. I think it would be like there would be 2, 3, 4 main players, like in most fields. So if you look at phones, you have Apple, Samsung, and then you have a lot of smaller, not really smaller players, but in terms of consumers, you have very few. You have some people that have Sony or LG or Xiaomi. So it will be the same. It will, I guess for now, based on the people that are now, it's GMX and us. You still have DYDX, but I do believe most of it is just market makers, and they're exploiting the DYDX token model to get a lot of DYDX and then dump it. And that's pretty much it. Most other players don't compete at this level.
yeah, I got a question from chat. Will GNS contribute with to Arbitrum Odyssey?
Well, we have been talking with Arbitrum. When they restart Odyssey 1, because they had to pause it. Oh, excuse me, I have an alarm. Sorry, a second. The game is starting.
Okay, we're gonna finish
okay,
in 5
don't
minutes.
worry.
In 5
Don't worry
minutes, yeah.
So yeah, we cannot enter Odyssey 1 once they restart it because that was closed. But we're gonna be on the voting list for Odyssey 2, and then people need to vote for the project that they want to see. So
Okay.
we will definitely be on the list, and then it depends on people if they want to see us on the Arbitrum Odyssey 2. I would hope so.
Do you plan to launch on other chains too in the future?
Uh, Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So at the beginning, when we first launched on Polygon, we weren't thinking about launching anywhere else, not even on Arbitrum. We were only thinking that the next step would be to launch on a ZK rollup directly. Then Polygon started to behave not that well, so we were like, okay, what's another great chain? Arbitrum. That's what we're launching. So after Arbitrum, I don't really see us launching anywhere else except on a EVM, on a ZK EVM. Because I think that zero knowledge technology is the next step in terms of speed and cost. So once we have a ZK EVM that's ready with Chainlink and good use and liquidity, we will probably migrate there as the next step. It could be one of the ZKs that Polygon is developing. We are in contact with Polygon, and we are in the whitelist to get into the test nets for these ZK EVMs, and we're going to be trying them out, and that will be our next step. We don't really see much use in, like, I don't know, launching whatever, Phantom or Avalanche.
Yeah.
People can just come to either Polygon or Arbitrum to trade. We don't need to be everywhere.
Yeah, I think that's a really good direction for you to come. There's gonna be like big trend for the ZK rollups, and it's gonna, I think, be a good next step to develop.
Might be the narrative of the next bull market.
Yeah, probably. So, all right, we are like 1 hour. I had like all of my question answered and few from the chat. So yeah, I really want to thank you that you came, that you put some time in that, and yeah, really appreciate that.
Sure, it was my pleasure. And again, I would recommend everyone to check our website and our docs. And if you want to trade the platform, you don't even need real money. We have a testnet on Mumbai. You can claim. You can type on Google Mumbai Matic faucet, and you get a faucet. You can get some free testnet Matic. Then you jump into our test trading platform. You can claim 10,000 fake DAI. And you can trade on the platform using this fake DAI, and you can test it out and see how everything works.
Yeah, and go all in.
Yeah, you can take a 10,000 DAI and 150x long Tesla or something like that, whatever you want.
Yeah. So I really recommend you, all the guys from the community and also from the YouTube, just to go try, see if there is this good platform, and then wait for the Arbitrum and test it again, because there's gonna be, as you said, great new user experience.
Oh yeah, I don't want to overhype it, but I'm pretty hyped because of what I know.
Okay.
I think in terms of UX is the next great step. And yeah, and of course everyone is welcome to come into our community and asking questions. We love feedback. We love people questioning stuff. When people question stuff, we can figure out errors in our logic or exploits, or who knows, So we're very open in that regard. So come give us a visit.
Yeah, sure. So wish you all the best in the team and the project, and for the Spanish team or the World Cup. And I hope we can hear each other in some times too, after all these upgrades.
Definitely, yeah. I would love to come back maybe in a few months and see how we're all doing.
Sure. So have a good night and see you.
Okay. Thank you. You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.